to give us what we need. Hey!
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it! Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power! Fight the power! Fight the power!
KBLA Talk 1580 and welcome to the Black Pack Show. I'm your host, Adrianne Shropshire. I feel like the week that we all just had, we all need to take a long walk. But we're here every Friday bringing you experts, strategists, activists, and those committed to making sure that we wake up on November 6, 2024, still living in a democracy. Make sure that you stay up with us by downloading the KBLA app or listen to us live or on demand or watch it on KBLA 1580 on YouTube. So we are wrapping up what has been another wild week in American politics, a week where we've seen Donald Trump try to disavow the conservative blueprint for governing under a new Republican administration, and now that obviously being the infamous Project 2025, he said the other day that he did not know anything about it. He did not know who was behind it, even though the Republican Party platform that also came out in the last week looks oddly similar to Project 2025's core tenets, and obviously many of his previous and current advisors were contributors. We also have been experiencing, which is why I feel like we need to take a long walk, the fallout within the Democratic Party over President Biden's debate performance. It continues to lead the stories on cable news. It continues to be the headlines in newspapers across the country. And while we've seen polls over the last few days that show that the race is virtually tied, that still has not quelled the loud calls from inside the party and outside in the news media calling for the president to step aside. But we did see this week members of the Congressional Black Caucus voice strong support for the president, both before and after the meeting with President Biden. We have a clip here from Representative Horsford.
Fit to serve. He has been fighting for the American people. I know more than 14 million Americans have already voted for him, including those in my state of Nevada. We need to honor and respect the will of the voters who have selected him as our Democratic nominee.
So that was the chair of the Congressional Black Caucus, Representative Stephen Horsford. So while all of this seems pretty wild and dramatic, the reality is that the Democratic Party has an actual process for selecting their nominee. And that process is not that the loudest voices on cable news get to decide. So we are actually very fortunate tonight to have Bishop Leah Daughtry, the co-chair of the Democratic National Convention Rules Committee, with us today to help us understand where we are in the process and if we are ever going to see some place that looks like normal anytime soon. So Bishop, I want to thank you so much for joining me. I feel like it's been a kind of a whirlwind, and there are actually rules and processes in place to get us to the end. And I feel like we're losing sight of that a little bit. But before we get into the nomination conversation, I do want to ask you about your thoughts on the president's press conference last night following the NATO conference. Lots of people were saying, where was this Joe Biden on debate night? How did you think the president did?
Well, first, thank you for having me. It's good to be with you and to share time with you and your listeners. I think, like most of America, I went into last night's press conference a little holding my breath.
Mm-hmm.
But as the press conference got going, and, of course, he did his scripted remarks, and then he stood there for an hour taking questions extemporaneously and answering them without notes. It was, I thought, quite remarkable.
Right.
I learned some things, and his voice was strong. His command of the issues was excellent.
Yep.
And, I came away saying, apparently he did have a cold.
Right.
He wasn't feeling well. He had a bad night, and we all do.
Yeah.
But last night was, I thought, in any other scenario, would have put to bed these issues of, whether he's capable, whether he has the cognition necessary to be the CEO of this country, really.
Right, but not in this scenario, because I do feel like even immediately after he had, put on essentially a master's class in foreign policy, there were still those voices out there that seemed to almost move the goalpost, from where it had been prior to that, right? There was this sort of emphasis on he has to have a good night, and then he did, and then the goalpost seemed to move a little bit.
Yeah, and I think we're in the silly season, as I like to call it. But what we have now is a bunch of pundits, a bunch of media outlets who I quite frankly think are invested in their own intellect and who are now out to prove themselves right. And so I don't know that we're getting objective news of anything. We've got a bunch of people, donors and others, who are just expressing their opinions. Expressed them right after the debate, and now they have to be right, and so he gets no pass.
Right.
We all know he has a stutter.
Right.
We all know we all know he's gaffe prone. He's been that way for as long as I can remember.
Right.
So the fact that he's stuttering and the fact that he has a couple of gaffes shouldn't be a surprise to anyone. But he gets no passes, and I think it's a real double standard, particularly when you look at President
What's on
Trump.
the other side. That's right.
Exactly. And his gaffes and his
misspoken words. Yep. So we're going to get into this conversation about the actual process when we come forward with Bishop Leah Daughtry. You are listening to the Black Pack on KBLA Talk 1580.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Anniversary, KBLA!
KBLA Talk 1580 is now celebrating 3 years of amplifying our voice and uplifting our community. We deeply appreciate your support of this radio station and will always do our level best to earn your support. Here's to many more years of loving and serving our community. We're KBLA Talk 1580, and we've got your black.
I know it's gonna happen without you.
At Charmin, we heard you shouldn't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we decided to sing about it.
When you're rolling Charmin, ultra soft on the party. Less is more, so roll it back, everybody. Charmin's irresistibly soft and hella nice. The crepe is always soft. It's our party vibe. She's crushing on the beat, so our chicks feel fly. So what? Everybody wanna touch the sky.
Charmin Ultra Soft is irresistibly soft and more absorbent, so you can use less. Enjoy the go with Charmin.
So the thing no one tells you about periods is that your flow changes every day, and so should your tampon size. Tampax has 5 absorbencies to match your changing flow. If it's uncomfortable to remove, go down a size. If it leaks, go up a size. And only Tampax has a leak guard braid to help give you up to 100% leak and odor-free protection. All-day comfort and protection for up to 8 hours for under $5 a month. Based on average U.S. consumer usage at manufacturer's suggested price, however, pricing is at the sole discretion of the retailer, excludes 8-count packs.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. Single Moms Planet is a nonprofit organization dedicated to uplifting under-resourced single mom business owners and working mothers nationwide. Single Moms Planet offers comprehensive programs of financial literacy, business development, mentorship, and entrepreneurial training. They provide education, accountability, and hope. Single Moms Planet was founded by model, TV personality, and producer Nefertari Plessy. Nefertiri felt firsthand the challenges that face single moms as she was raised by a working single mother. She learned that the most disadvantaged group in the United States are single mom families. According to the U.S. Census, 30% live under the poverty line. So she decided to do something about it, along with co-founder Cole Patterson. Their goal is to end the poverty cycle in single mother households through education, opportunity, and networking, providing family and child enrichment programs for under-resourced single-parent families. Single Moms Planet serves over 10,000 single moms and their children each year. Studies show that business development and financial literacy provide a positive environment for children and families, exposing them to new possibilities and opportunities. To attend one of their fun events, make a donation, or get more information, or if you need help as a single mom, please visit singlemomsplanet.org. That's singlemomsplanet.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
You don't talk to me like that. Don't talk to your mommy like that.
Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
You are listening to KBLA Talk 1580. This is the Black Pack. I am your host, Adrianne Shropshire, and we are here with Bishop Leah Daughtry, the co-chair of the Democratic National Convention Rules Committee. So, Leah, I said this a few minutes ago, which is I feel like we are on a merry-go-round right now. It is very confusing. There are lots of voices calling for a change in the nominee, and also lots of just overall confusion about whether or not that is even a thing that is possible at this point and how it would even work. So I want to first just maybe step back a little and have you explain the process to us, because we know that folks voted in a presidential primary. We know that delegates were elected. And I feel like these are critical steps that have already happened, right, that are being lost in all of the noise. So in a normal presidential election year, what is the process that happens to get to the convention and the nomination?
Okay, sure. So we start at the Democratic Party side immediately following a presidential election, the very next year, setting the rules for the next cycle. So we started in 2021 creating the rules for 2024. We do it early because we have the benefit of being right up on it. And being able to look at what worked and what didn't, but it also is the benefit of not having a candidate to whom you are beholden as you're setting the rules. So the rules that are in place right now have been adopted by the Democratic National Committee in 2022 when we didn't know who was going to run.
Right.
And those rules lay out the process of delegate selection, how the states conduct their primaries, what their delegations look like, things like equal division. We require that every delegation be equally divided between male and female, and we make provisions for our trans siblings and so forth. So when the primaries start, one, we create the calendar. We set the calendar of what states go first. If you remember, we moved South Carolina up. That's part of the nomination rules. So we set all of the calendar stuff, and then people file with the FEC to run for president. And in this cycle, I want people to know, if you go on FEC.gov, you will see that 197 people filed to run for president on the Democratic side. Wow. On the Republican side, it's more than 1,000 people filed to run for president. These candidates, whoever they are, then have to follow the state party procedure, the state procedure. 56 state parties and territories. Each one has different rules: how you get on the ballot, how you don't get on the ballot, the number of signatures you need, etc. The Democratic Party does not control that; the state legislature controls it.
Right.
So you get through all of that, you go to the polls, you vote for your candidate, you vote for your delegate, and those are the people who are then going to the convention. Under the Democratic Party's rules, you vote for delegates, and those delegates you vote for are pledged, we call them, pledged to the presidential candidate.
Right.
That means when they come to convention, they are supposed to vote according to the will of the voter and represent the voters who sent them to the convention. Now, we have a clause that the Republicans don't have. On the Democratic side, we say, in all good conscience.
Uh-huh.
That you vote for your candidate in all good conscience.
Right.
But you're supposed to vote for as the will of the
The
people.
expectation is, yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That you will vote for the candidate. So here we are.
Right. So here we are. And all of that.
Here we are.
All of that sounds like democracy, right?
Yes.
In real practice, right? Like, I appreciate that civics
right.
education that you just gave us. And so now we're here. And so what's the next step from where we are?
So there are 4,000 delegates. A candidate in the Democratic Party needs 50% plus one in order to become the nominee.
Mm-hmm.
President Biden, through the votes of 15 million people, earned 3,900 delegates,
mm-hmm.
far over the 2001
right.
that he needs.
Right.
So the expectation is that those delegates will vote for him and he will become the nominee. This is why we call him the presumptive nominee
right.
now, because we know he has amassed 3,900 of the 4,000 delegates needed. I want to people like to talk about the superdelegates.
Mm-hmm,
we
mm-hmm.
passed a rule that says superdelegates, who are the members of Congress, Democratic governors, members of the DNC, have no vote when it comes to the nomination of the president.
Can we stop there for a second? Because I do feel like that's an important point, because we're hearing a lot of voices right now, right? We're hearing donors, we're hearing operatives, we're hearing elected officials, and ultimately, whose voice matters in the process, right? Who actually, there's a set of folks that are going to vote, right? And who is that, and what? And so when we're hearing all the noise and we're seeing people on cable news shows that are calling for, the president to step aside or not, right? Like saying that he should
mm-hmm.
stay in. Those are voices that maybe people who actually do not have an actual vote in this process. Is that accurate? That
is accurate. They do not. Members of Congress do not have a vote. Governors do not have a vote. I'm a superdelegate because I am a member of the DNC. I don't have a vote. We cannot vote on the nomination on the first ballot.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm.
If the first ballot fails, then we can vote on the second ballot. But that's, with the president having an overwhelming number, we're
right.
not expected to have a vote. So a lot of the people talking don't have a vote in this process.
Right. So if the 3,900 delegates that he got, the expectation is that, of course, with the stipulation of in good conscience or whatever the wording is, that those folks
mm-hmm.
will come, they'll pledge their votes to Biden because he won those delegates.
Mm-hmm.
And if that happens on the first vote, then he is the nominee.
He is the nominee.
Right. And
end of story, he is the nominee.
Right. And so when we think about, so we're about a month away, is that right? A little bit more than a month away
mm-hmm.
from the convention that's happening in Chicago, which I know everyone feels is a little bit eerie to be doing this convention under these kind of circumstances in the place where there was so much chaos in 1968. But we'll be at the convention in Chicago in a little more than a month. As this conversation is playing out in the media, right? And I know that part of the confusion for folks, and I know for people that I talk to, part of the confusion is when people are saying, well, we can, if Biden steps aside, or if he would just agree to step aside, then we can have a new nominee. How would that even work? How would that work to move through the process that you just described, which is a very long process, right? That included people voting, right? Included actual voters casting their ballots in states, that included the election of delegates, et cetera. How would it even work that a new, presumptive nominee could be arrived at before the convention?
It would be very difficult because if the president chooses to remove himself from the process and releases his delegates to vote for as they wish, the president could say, I would like, Vice President Kamala Harris to be the nominee, and I'd like you to vote for her. They are not obligated to do that.
Mm-hmm.
She would need to come to the convention, get her petition signed. The rules require that anybody who wants their name in nomination has to get so many signatures from no more than 50 from any one state. in order to be nominated.
Mm-hmm.
So what they're trying to have is an open convention, which means that 6, 7, 8 people might put their names in nomination, and then we're going to have endless nominating speeches and endless jockeying while the world is watching at a moment when we should be unified and talking about our vision for the country and drawing a contrast. We will be talking about, who should be the person, and it will last. It will go on and on and on. Until we get, and that, I don't know that that's the best strategy, but that's the technicalities of how it would work.
How it might work. So let's just stay on that point for a second, because I do feel like, and it has been said many times, and you just said it again, is that while we're in the midst of this internal Democratic Party debate, to be diplomatic about it, there's a thing that we are not doing. And that is drawing the contrast. That is talking about the dangers, the sort of existential threat of a second Donald Trump term. We're not talking about any of the sort of what's going to certainly what we will see come out of the Republicans' convention next week. But we're not spending the time that we need to really be focused in and making sure that folks understand where we are in this country and what needs to be done. What is it going to take to sort of get folks to move back, even if the debate still continues? What is it going to take to move folks to refocusing this conversation on what the real task is at hand, and that is keeping Donald Trump out of office?
I think that a couple things. One, I'm hopeful that the polls, if we still trust polls, that have been coming out today that shows that Biden is within 1. He's at 271 electoral college votes, that those sort of things will kind of catch fever. But none of that happens, Adrian, if the people don't force the conversation, because it is clear that the media is invested in the narrative that they have themselves developed. So I think, and if you notice, all the people who were saying drop out, get somebody new, are of a certain demographic. And I don't think we're hearing enough from women. I don't think we're hearing enough from people of color. I don't think we're hearing enough from black people. And like you, like me, I'm out in these streets talking to folks. And folks are mad and saying, who put them in charge? I voted, and this is what I voted for, and why are we relitigating this? And I think it's going to take us standing up and saying, go sit down, we are clear, we want Biden, and who are you?
Yeah, I think that one of my concerns about the long-term damage that this is causing, and we can talk about the potential short-term damage, is that it is creating, potential long-term rift between, I know what people have referred to as the elites in the party, right, and the base itself. And I worry about that because there is this sense of like, well, we voted, right, y'all, even for a lot of folks that we're talking to on the doors, they're like, I wasn't sure about Joe Biden, but y'all have convinced me. And now what's happening, right? And so I worry about that sort of long-term rift. The other thing that's obviously come up in this conversation is this question about, you're in the scenario that you were walking us through would be a scenario in which Kamala Harris comes forward. But one of the things that's obviously come up as a part of this conversation is this idea that if there were to be a change, that somehow she would be skipped over. And I know that I think you were in New Orleans. I know you were in Dallas. I'm one, and I know that that was a place where there were, the largest convenings of black women, that we have in the country. And so, what were you hearing there about the president, about the vice president, and this sort of, suggestion, which is even shocking to me, the suggestion that she would be passed over in the event of a different ticket?
Yeah, I was hearing from black men and women alike a slow, rumbling anger that we would be having a conversation about the president stepping down and, the pundits and others banding about these names. Let's get this one, let's get that one, let's get the other one, and not even considering the sitting vice president of the United States. It's offensive, it's insulting, it's infuriating, and I think black people everywhere were like, what is this?
Right.
How does she not even get mentioned in the conversation when she has done a very good job? She's been a wonderful governing partner. She's out there on the front lines. How do you skip her? And it feels like erasure. It feels like an insult. to not even call her name is problematic.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is, I mean, that's certainly, what we've heard. And it really is sort of a double take, right? That people have, like, wait a minute, what? But it does, I think that also is, a part of this point about you have to listen to your base, right? You have to at least make an effort, right, to incorporate the opinions, the ideas of the people who actually elect you into office. And that's, again, like my concern is that the voices of actual Democratic voters and core constituencies within the Democratic coalition are being lost in this moment. And I worry about the long-term damage that does for the Democratic Party.
That is exactly right. And the other thing I would just add, Adrian, is as people dream this scenario of an open convention, they're also not considering the logistics of all of this, because our nominees' names still must get on state ballots.
Right.
And in many instances, the time to have done that has passed.
Yeah.
And so we would be asking state legislatures across the country, including red state legislators, to change their laws, to allow us to change our nominee. And that is extraordinarily problematic and unlikely to happen.
Yeah, it seems unlikely. And that's why I wanted to have you on, to sort of bring us back to reality, right? There is a process, there is a plan, and there are folks like you and others, Donna Brazil, who are trying to walk us down that path. I want to thank you so much for joining me. This is, I feel, really helpful to me. You are always a calming spirit for me, so I appreciate you coming on at the end of this crazy week. And hopefully you'll come back and help continue to guide us through this process.
Absolutely. I'd love to come back anytime, and I'd love to chat with you sometime about what's about to happen in Ohio.
Thank you.
As affects this race. So thank you, Adrianne. I appreciate it.
Thank you. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
I'm Tyreek Wayne. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. Detroit, Michigan officials are addressing the Black Party issue in the city after 21 people were shot and 2 of them died this past weekend. The Detroit Police Department is launching an internal investigation into the response to the mass shooting. Community leaders are seeking to raise money to help offset violence in Chicago, Illinois. Civic leaders joined Mayor Brandon Johnson, who is Black, and Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker this week to announce a pledge of $100 million in private funding for anti-violence programs, also known as violence interrupters. The family of a Black 15-year-old boy with autism who was shot to death by San Bernardino County, California sheriff's deputies is filing a federal lawsuit. Attorney John Burris announced the lawsuit at a news conference on Thursday. The lawsuit names the county and deputies involved. Ryan Gaynor was shot on March 9th. That's the latest. I'm Tyreek Wayne on your home for 24/7 News, the Black Information Network.
Big mess right now heading into the South Bay curve. North 405 at Western Avenue. It's an accident involving an overturned vehicle. The carpool and left-hand lanes are taken away. And the 405 North, first you have delays from Alameda to Artesia Boulevard. Then up ahead you're slow again on the 405 northbound from Culver Boulevard in Culver City up to Nordhoff. And then 405 northbound slows again from the 118 up to the 5, the Golden State Freeway near San Fernando.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. I started Blindster in 2010 in my garage after I overpaid for new blinds. I researched the industry, hired my mom, and 14 years later, we're one of the largest retailers of custom blinds in the U.S. Don't pay too much for new blinds. Go to Blindster.com.
Is this the tackle? This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
LeBron James gave another indication that his career is getting closer to the finish line. LeBron, who turns 40 in December, said the Summer Olympics in Paris will be his final Olympics competition. LeBron is going for his 3rd gold medal. With LA preparing to host the Summer Olympics in 2028, LeBron made it clear that he will not be on Team USA's roster. The future Hall of Famer will be 43 when the Olympics come to LA. LeBron agreed to only a 2-year deal when he re-signed with the Lakers on July 3rd. That was also a message. Get ready for reality reality, the time is approaching when we will no longer see one of the all-time greats hooping it up. Tomorrow night at 7 here on KBLA, join me and my co-host Neil Scarborough for Out of Bounds. 60 minutes of sports chatter with some flavor. You're welcome to join us in the conversation at 1-800-920-1580. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson. More news, opinions, and conversation when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
Yeah, yo, come on. Pick up the drums.
At KBLA Talk 1580, we fight the power every day.
Yeah, gotta give us what we want. Gotta give us what we need. Hey.
I listen to KBLA and I love the commercials. I know what the commercials mean. I also, if I'm looking and trying to figure something out, I need something to talk to me that might hit me. And it happens on TV because, you know, every time they show a sporting event, they got the pharmaceutical companies back to back to back telling people how to fix the sickness on the same stuff that they sell them. So we get it.
Yep, we get it too, Chuck D. And that's why at KBLA Talk 1580, we don't black down.
Drop it. Our freedom of speech is freedom of death. We got to fight the powers that be. Fight the power. Fight the power.
Environmental justice is racial justice.
Environmental justice is social justice.
This is KBLA Talk 1580. Our city's hottest weeks of summer are approaching. If you're 60 or older, you're at risk of heat stroke or worse. Extreme heat can kill. That's why KBLA Talk 1580 is part of our year-long climate justice campaign. Has partnered with the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power and the LA City Department of Aging for LADWP's Powered by Equity event, Heat Relief for Seniors Resource Fair. Join fellow LA seniors who hope to beat the heat and stay safe on Monday, July 15th, 10 a.m. at the Watts Labor Community Action Center in South Los Angeles. Learn about LADWP's Easy Save and Level Pay programs to help lower your monthly electric bill. And there will be tips and resources to be ready and safe in the heat. LADWP customers 60 years or older will be eligible to receive a portable air conditioner while supplies last. Personal ID and your LADWP bill are required. Contact your LA Department of Aging Neighborhood Senior Center for Cool LA Heat Relief for Seniors participation details or visit www.ladwp.com/events.
Hey LA, today I'm here to talk to you about Grid Alternatives, which is a nonprofit in LA that focuses on renewable energy. We serve communities who have been left out of the renewable energy sector. We offer paid job training, and in 13 weeks, you can become a solar installer. 80% of our graduates get hired into the industry, and once you're hired in the industry, you stop at a high, medium income. That could be $20 an hour or more. 80% of our graduates get hired into the industry. Call today so you don't be left out at 323-861-0105 or gridalternatives.org, gridalternatives.org.
Hey there, Los Angeles. This is James Lucky Jr., publisher and editor of Los Angeles News Observer. Are you hungry for news that matters to you in the African-American communities of Los Angeles? Well, buckle up, because we got the scoop you've been craving. Stay in the know and never miss a beat with our free weekly publications conveniently available near you. Or hop on the digital wave and become an exclusive subscriber at OGNSC.com. Don't forget to join the party on Instagram and Twitter at OGNSCINC for behind-the-scenes access and sizzling updates. No more FOMO. Let's stay informed, connected, and empowered together.
Let's get back to more of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire right now on KBLA Talk 1580.
Boom, 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 boom. Now tell me what you gonna do when it ain't nowhere to run. When judgment comes for you. When judgment comes for you. What you gonna do when it ain't nowhere to hide. When judgment comes for you. 'Cause it's gonna come for you.
This is Adrianne Shropshire. You are listening to the Black Pack on KBLA Talk 1580. And I feel like we have arrived at the literal crossroads in American democracy right now. We have a choice to make. That choice is between a democracy that actually or being in a place where we have a democracy that actually allows for us to continue to move toward a more perfect union, to have a multiracial democracy, and in America where democracy just crashes out and we fall over the edge into an authoritarian dictatorship. And that's not hyperbole. That is actually where we are, and part of the reason is because of what we are hearing and seeing come out of conservative circles and out of the Republican Party. So we are continuing our conversation this afternoon with civil rights attorney Maya Wiley, president and CEO of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights. And we are going to get into this conversation about Project 2025, Maya, and what it means for us. So thank you for joining me, Maya. I really appreciate you taking the time. I know you are always out there trying to make sure that folks are educated on what's going on and what we can do, all of us collectively, to make sure that we're preserving our rights.
Well, Adrianne, I could not say no to you, who has been out here doing this work for decades, and just so appreciate you and the work you do. So it is my great pleasure to join you and your listeners.
Thank you. So we know, I just got off with Leah Daughtry, Bishop Daughtry, talking about the actual process to the nomination, because there is a process. And so while we're, I think, seeing the controversy that's swirling inside of the nomination process for the Democrats, the threat of far-right extremism is actually what is looming over the top of all of this. And we know that whether it is Project 2025 or the Agenda 47, which is the document that the platform, I guess, that Republicans just put out, we know that conservatives have been playing a long game in terms of rolling back progress on equity and justice. So can you share with our listeners what exactly Project 2025 is and why we should be concerned about it?
Well, let me start with just the fact that, as we know, and we know this is Black people, we know this is people who care about democracy, we know this is people who have understood that we have had to fight for hundreds of years to ensure things as basic as the right to vote. So I say that because when you read, first of all, understanding who is behind Project 2025, and this is a conglomerate of over 100 different conservative groups, but many of them, including the Heritage Foundation that has overseen the project, has been led by people who have been directly engaged, were in the Trump administration, in Trump's presidency.
So when he says, I don't know anything about that, I don't know who these people are, he's actually lying.
Yes.
Yeah.
These are people he's talking to. These are people he has not only had in his administration in the past, in some instances, it's people who we know he continues to speak with. And the other thing is, if you match up what Donald Trump has said he wants to do as president, you can literally match it up to some of the things that we are seeing that's explicit in Project 2025. And let me just underscore something. Many of the people, I won't say all because I can't pretend to know all, but many of the people who we do know who are actively engaged, some of the organizations and think tanks, consider themselves Christian nationalists.
Yes. This is a point that I wanted to come to. Yes.
Yes. We can't separate this from what we're seeing in the plan, because this is what we must understand, particularly as a Black people who are often Christian, although we are not all Christian.
Right.
But, of course, for a lot of Black folks in this country, Christianity is part of our identity. This is not Christianity in the teachings of Jesus Christ.
No.
I just want to say that as someone who comes from a family who has considered itself Christian. This is about an ideology that says things like, you can only, how do I say this politely? It really wants to return to an America that was an America that also treated Black people very badly, even though we were Christian.
Right.
Consider it a form of ethno-nationalism that can even be linked to white ethno-nationalism and have had a straight line from those, for example, when we saw 60 days of filibustering the Civil Rights Act of 1964, a number of the people, including Dixiecrats that were filibustering, would have considered themselves Christian nationalists.
Right.
So there really is a direct line between some of the extremism and hate groups that we see that are white identified, that are white supremacists, that are what you would call Christian nationalism. And they literally want to undermine critical protections in our Constitution that also protect us as Black people.
Right. And so when we think about, it lines up, right? It tracks, right, as one would say, with, Donald Trump's long-term campaign slogan about making America great again, right? It is about returning to a period of time, a moment in time, when for many Black people in this country, we were actually living under something that looked like authoritarianism, right? I always say that it's, that authoritarianism in America is not new to Black people. That's why we don't want to return to it, right? It may be new to other folks. But when we think about the core kind of tenets of Project 2025, what is it fundamentally trying to do?
This is so important to understand, particularly as we just had these Supreme Court cases that crowned a president that said there's absolute immunity for the president if the president is doing something that's named in the Constitution. And if it's what we'll call an official act of the presidency, it's going to be really hard for anyone to prosecute a president for crimes if the president can say it was an official act. Why does that matter? It matters because when you read Project 2025, and remember that a lot of these justices are actually aligned with the ideology of many of these groups, they are fundamentally saying we want to have a very strong president and we want to weaken the ability of anyone in government, including people who are just civil servants. Remember, the vast majority of our federal agencies are peopled by people who don't come from a political party in terms of getting their jobs. They're not appointees. They get their jobs through a civil service system, and they are nonpartisan in terms of getting that job. And they're just there to do the job no matter what party is in power. This project says we are going to deem the president so powerful, we're going to change the civil service law and purge 20,000 people and maybe up to 50,000 people so that we can put in our army of folks who carry our ideology, and then in effect we'll create our own deep state.
Right. So I want to get into more of this because there is something about who those folks are that will lose their jobs, right? That is important to point out, right? When we're talking about remaking the federal government. I want to get into that when we come forward more on Project 2025 with Maya Wiley.
You're part of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
Oh, man. Looks like Bobby needs a ride to the airport again.
Grab the keys.
Who's taking Auntie and her friends to the swap meet?
Grab the keys.
How about we drop these boxes off at Miss Johnson?
Grab the keys.
Whether you're giving rides or hauling gear, you're all about getting things done. So do it all in a Chevy SUV. From the versatile Equinox and sporty Blazer to the roomy Traverse, our lineup of SUVs will carry you through every adventure. All you have to do is
grab the keys.
That's how we do. Head to your local Chevy dealer, where well-qualified buyers get 1.9% financing on all 2024 Malibu, Colorado, Blazer, Equinox, Trailblazer, and Traverse limited models. Chevrolet. Together, let's drive.
1.9% APR for 36 months. Monthly payment is $28.60 for every $1,000 you finance. Example down payment 15.8%. Must finance with GM Financial. Some customers may not qualify. Not available with lease and some other offers. Take new retail delivery by 7/1/24.
Yeah.
Look,
California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
SoCal on July 14th, Big 3. We're back. The world's greatest basketball in the summer. The Big 3. There's simply no comparison, no competition.
They not like us.
That's right, they not like us. We own the summer with our traditional hard-nosed brand of basketball. The Big 3, founded by Ice Cube. It's professional 303 basketball with former NBA greats and Hall of Fame coaches. Come out to the Honda Center July 14th. Hang with your homeboy Ice Cube and watch the greatest game in the summer. It's your homeboy Ice Cube. It's the Big 3, Season 7. The hottest game of the summer. I'll be in the house with your favorite Big 3 players and Hall of Fame coaches. Get your tickets at big3.com/tickets. Oh, yay.
You're inside the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580.
This is the Black Pack. I am Adrianne Shropshire, and we are on with Maya Wiley talking about Project 2025. And so I want to pick back up, Maya, on that, the last point that you were making about this sort of, when we think about who are civil servants and who is sitting in those jobs and government jobs. You mentioned the Supreme Court decisions, and we also know that the Supreme Court has also sort of weighed in on this idea of attacking or dismantling the administrative state and decisions that we've made, which also seems to be the point of Project 2025, right? Sort of remaking the federal government in their own image, which is the image of MAGA. But we also know that sitting inside of those government jobs that they want to get rid of are a lot of Black folks. And there is, I think we sort of lose sight a little bit, of the fact that there are actual people and who those people are that will be hurt, right, for by this sort of wholesale revamping of the federal government. Talk a little bit more about that, the sort of like trying to remake the government in their own image, whatever that image is.
Yeah, and look, it's not like Donald Trump didn't try to do this when he was president as well, where he actually asked his Office of Management and Government and his Office of Personnel in the White House to go and look for people who didn't, do his bidding or agree with him. We even saw him do that with his own appointees at times, if they wouldn't do what he demanded, and when they were saying, but it's not legal,
right.
or we don't have the power to do that,
right.
which is what they're supposed to say to the president.
Exactly.
So it could be, it could be all kinds of professionals. Remember that it was the civil service, and my own grandfather, as a Black man who didn't have a college degree, got a civil service job at the post office because he took the test, passed it, and that was part of our family's ticket into the middle class as a Black family. It is civil service jobs. That was one of the places where we were able to get those jobs. And we also have a lot of unions, who are also protecting the labor of those folks.
Right.
These are both things on the chopping block under Project 2025. And this is a project that has said, so they're going to look for loyalty, but they're also going to look for the places where they're more likely to prevent government from doing what they don't want or force it to do what they do want it to do. So take Office of Management and Budget, which is, basically directing the spending of the government. And one of the things that they have made clear in Project 2025 is they want the president to have the power to actually not fund things they don't like.
Right.
That's devastating for communities of color in general and black communities in particular, whether it's education programs, whether it's things like they've said explicitly they don't want to fund Pell Grants, which help pay for higher education and our ability to go to college.
And are disproportionately used by black students,
disproportionately used by black students. They have said that they don't want the Justice Department to be able to do what the Justice Department does right now, which is go after and enforce federal civil rights. Like voting rights discrimination, like all kinds of discrimination that we fought so hard to say is unlawful. They also want the ability to direct the Department of Justice to go after enemies. Well, what enemy? Who are the enemies?
Right, whoever they name them as.
We have as a history pushed so hard to get the federal government to ensure that states and individuals aren't violating our rights. This is going to actually reverse so much of what we've been able to not just enshrine in law, but enshrine in federal government as part of the civil service job of government. And it's on the chopping block in this plan, and they're explicit about it when it comes to going after programs like diversity, equity, inclusion, critical race theory, or anything that says you learn black history could be on the chopping block.
So this is such an important conversation. We're going to continue this on the other side with Maya Wiley talking about Project 2025 and why we should all be concerned when we come back.
More of the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
Are you a small business struggling with the rising cost of healthcare for your employees? Are you considering offering healthcare benefits to your employees? It's a complex issue and can be difficult to understand and navigate. Chase Bank is here to help. Join us Wednesday, July 17th at the Chase Crenshaw Community Center to learn from experts from Covered California and answer questions about health benefits options for your business. Experts will discuss tax credits, the California health insurance market, and new options for small businesses. For more information and to register, stop by the Crenshaw Community Center or call 323-299-2641. Again, 323-299-2641. Chase Bank is here to help.
KBLA Talk 1580 invites you to join us in our climate justice campaign partner, LA City Council member Curran D. Price Jr., as we celebrate the grand unveiling of the South LA Greenway, Saturday, August 3rd, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Augustus Hawkins Nature Park, 5790 Compton Avenue in the city of Los Angeles. Join us for a green and healthy festival with free food, planting activities, tree adoptions, nature walking tours, Zumba, yoga, sound baths, and more. It's summer, time to get outside. We look forward to seeing you at the dedication of the South LA Greenway, Saturday, August 3rd, 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. at the Augustus Hawkins Nature Park, 5790 Compton Avenue in the city of Los Angeles. Caring about the climate, caring about the community, LA City Council member Curran D. Price Jr. and KBLA Talk 1580.
You don't talk to me like that. You don't talk to your mommy like that. Unlike your mama, we can handle your black talk on the Black Pack with Adrianne Shropshire.
This is Adrianne Shropshire. This is the Black Pack, and you are listening to KBLA Talk 1580. This is so this conversation about Project 2025 is so scary. I think that when Taraji P. Henson stood up on the stage at the BET Awards and said, "Look it up," right? Google it. That was an important moment because it actually drove searches, right, for Project 2025. And it is important that we understand what's happening, because many of the things that you were saying in the last segment are the things that we should be deeply concerned about. The actual attacks on civil rights and the long fought and hard fought victories that we saw in the, from the that were codified inside of the Civil Rights Act, not even to mention the Voting Rights Act, right? So when we think about what it is that they are trying to erode, I'm actually going to ask you, and I didn't want to do this on air in case you tell me beat it, Adrianne, but I wanted to ask you if you could stay with us for like 10 minutes more to sort of talk this through a little bit. If you can, I totally understand, but I feel like
Sure.
okay,
No,
we're just
absolutely
scratching the surface here. So, but I do want to ask you, because this feels like a slide into fascism. And you talked earlier about these kind of networks, right? It's hundreds of groups, or more than 100 groups or something, that are a part of this. Is that how people should understand this?
They should, absolutely. The reason that Taraji P. Henson did such a service is that many of us have been talking about this for months. This is not a new plan. Actually, in fact, what a lot of us have been saying is it's not only not that the plan itself they've been working on for a while, assuming and hoping they could have another Trump administration to deliver it. But it's actually ideas that are as old as 1972 as a retrenchment from the gains of the civil rights movement. This is a long time coming from groups of opposition that never went away. We have to understand that. But you can see it directly in the document.
Yeah.
This is why it's so terrifying to democracy, because it says things like, limit racial classifications and critical race theory trainings.
Right.
Now, what does that mean, right? You can
right.
say, okay, what? So what? Why should we be concerned about that?
I'm going to pause you right there, and I'm going to ask you to, when we come back on the other side, to tell us what that means, because that is really important and really critical. And I feel like there's a lot of things that we don't want people to miss when they go look it up themselves. So we are going to continue this conversation, maybe dig a little bit deeper when we come back with Maya Wiley, and our gratitude to you, ma'am, for being here to give us this information. But on the other side, we will come back to this conversation. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Tyreek Wynn. Here's the latest on the Black Information Network. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, who is black, met with President Biden on Thursday as a growing number of Democrats want the president to bow out of the 2024 election. Jeffries said he expressed his full breadth of insight from his caucus during a private meeting with the president Thursday evening. A key ally of President Biden says he's standing by the president in the re-election bid. South Carolina Democrat Jim Clyburn, who is black, told NBC's Today Show the conversation over whether Biden should exit the race should